Let me introduce you to our first OpenClaw teammate. She's called ChristAIna, and she is what happens when you now install an always-on agent into a small but mighty team, for example, to do daily briefings, to do CRM pipeline checks, even code for you. I want to share our entire setup and the use cases that we have here at Pirate Skills. As always, you can read this article on pirateskills.com, you can watch it on YouTube, or you can listen to it on Apple Podcast and on Spotify. Have fun. Now let's get started. The problem we had is that we treated AI mostly like an assistant and not like a teammate. When we made that mental switch, everything changed. I laid this system out in the last article called The AI Skill Path. I linked it for you here. And even though level 4 really sounded already very advanced, it was always me who triggered the input in order to get a certain output. There was never something proactively done by the AI. A couple of weeks before that introduced Jarvis, my vibe manager. I was preparing that situation quite nicely, a full integration of a linear dashboard together with Claude Code, where I had all of my work already documented, but still no proactive actions. I had to trigger Jarvis, and then it would do work for me, which was excellent, but not what a real teammate would feel like, right? So we have to bridge that gap, and that gap is exactly what I described in level 5, the captain level on the AI skill path, where you take in autonomous agent like OpenClaw, for example, or Agent Zero, and you introduce it to your team as a real team member that takes on responsibilities in your team. And my current small but mighty crew looks like this. Yeah, I'm Ben. I'm mostly human, people say. Then I'm responsible for product vision and marketing, standing in front of the camera, community building. Christina, my fiance and business partner, she's very, very human. She's my second brain. She does all of the content support. She handles all of finances and customer communication. And she leads with intuition and keeps the crew aligned that way. And then we introduced ChristAIna. Obviously, this is a play on her name. We were thinking how can we get more Christinas in this world? Because my customers were always joking, we need a Christina as well. And so ChristAIna was born. She is an OpenClaw agent, our first one. She's the quartermaster of this little crew. And she's responsible for daily briefings, CRM updates, code deploys, content scheduling, email monitoring, general system monitoring. And she's working while we are sleeping. That's a great setup. So how do we get to this setup? To understand the foundation, I need to talk about a couple of projects and people who made it possible that I have this amazing OpenClaw running on my machine. First one is, of course, Peter Steinberger, the inventor of OpenClaw, who is popular also for a PDF processing app that is probably running on your phone right now. But he's now famous for introducing OpenClaw. So I knew people were going down this trend of buying Mac minis and then chatting via Telegram with it. I knew I wanted to have a more managed infrastructure, without paying another software as a service to set things up for me. I wanted to know how it works myself. So I chose to set this up with a platform called Hetzner. But how am I, as a non-technical person, going to do all of this? Enter to the rescue Andreas Spannagel, a guy from our community here who shared the openclaw-infra repo. I can highly recommend. And all I did was say, hey, Claude Code, can you please set this up for me? Then me feeling like the click dummy as a human that I am, where Claude Code could do 95%, but the last 5%, creating the Hetzner account, putting in my credit card, getting some API keys. It costs about $12 a month. I would recommend going for the CX43 version that has enough RAM to also manage memory correctly and run some coding tools on there. And The beautiful thing that Andreas set up here is it has a firewall implemented. It has like a complete zero trust network via Tailscale, which means essentially only your machine that you actively had to unlock can access your OpenClaw. It's not accessible from the outside. It's living in a sandbox inside of a sandbox. So it's a pretty safe environment. And those two guys, Peter and Andy, they made it possible here. So all attributions to them, I linked all of their stuff down here. This took me about an hour, but this was just a baseline. I could chat with it via Telegram. That was the first channel I tried, and moved on pretty fast from there. But it didn't yet have the tools and the context that I needed it to provide. So it became a valuable team member. I treat working with AI like onboarding a new teammate. You wouldn't just ask them to do work. You would probably give it a workspace, tell the person what responsibilities they have. And so I did the same. First of all, I, of course, chose the smartest model I was able to afford, which is Claude Opus 4.6 at this point in time. And I gave it a lot of tool access and skills, which are like instructions how to use certain tools. But without those tools and skills, it's pretty much as good as ChatGPT, but this is not what we want. We want to give it access to all of the important data and tools in our life and in our business. Of course, carefully. I always check like, hey, what is it doing? And is it doing what I expected? Or is it doing something weird? But so far, I'm extremely happy with this. I actually did the first install on February 28th. So this is roughly a month in, and I'm super satisfied. So let me share like the tools and the skills that I gave it. So first of all, you need to define like the primary way to communicate. I chose Slack. I'll talk about that below. So essentially, this is a built-in tool, and then I just gave it a skill that essentially says like, this is how I prefer you to format messages in Slack. And this is the channel for this work. And this is the channel for that work. Then it immediately asked me, hey, don't you want to give me like website search abilities? So I signed up for Brave Search and gave it an API key and a skill how to use that tool. There's always like a tool that gives it access to something, and then a skill that is a way to tell it how to use it. The skill wouldn't be necessary. I don't have skills for all tools. If it already can work with those tools based on its pre-training, you don't need it. But I often just create these skills or modify existing ones to give it like my opinionated use of a certain tool. For example, there is actually one like kind of plugin by Peter Steinberger himself called GOG for all access to Google Workspaces like Gmail, Calendar, Drive, and so on. And this came like with the CLI tool. This is a command line interface tool that the AI can use for you. You don't need to understand the technicalities behind it, but I usually have learned to prefer CLI tools over, for example, MCP servers because they feel more reliable, faster, use less token, and they feel also that that the authentication doesn't bug out so often. It's pretty stable. Here I gave it access to my emails and calendars because I wanted it to be a valuable member of my team, and that needs to read my stuff. We have everything pretty centralized around my accounts. Christina has her own, but most of the work she does is probably within my Gmail and my calendar. So in order for the AI to help me with that and help Christina with that, they need to have access to it. So then if I want to code anything, I needed to give it access to GitHub, where I store all of my code, where it can write something, create a PR, review something, and send me links to it later to review. Then I have an important booking tool called cal.com. Everyone who buys something more expensive from Pirate Skills usually wants to talk to me beforehand. So it gets access to that. So it can tell me, hey, somebody new booked an appointment. Let me synchronize that with your CRM system, and so on. Then I gave it Zernio, my social media scheduling and analytics tool. It also has a CLI plus a skill, so it knows how to schedule posts for me or tell me which were the best performing posts on which platform. Then I also, part of the coding setup, gave it access to Vercel, so it can see how is my software, even like just pirateskills.com, running on the server, and see if any errors coming up. It suggests bug fixes. It can code those fixes, suggest them to me to review, etc. Then a lot of the things I do is around email. I send a weekly newsletter. Then I send certain email reminders for event signups and lead magnets. I want to make sure that they all go out properly, that there is no weirdness in there, and it checks that. So I can simply say, hey, create the newsletter for the next week. I want to have this and that content for it, and it will do it for me. It will do the scheduling. It will let me see a draft up front, send me test mails. It's amazing. Then Linear, you already know from my management article probably, is my project management tool. This is wonderful to have like one centralized project management tool where it can actually see the work that Christina and I am doing, and the AI can simply work with us in parallel on the issues. It's amazing. And this is, for example, running through an MCP server and not a CLI. So here it's just using a different way to communicate. It's not better or worse per se than a CLI, but sometimes an MCP is better. Most of the time, a CLI is better, in my opinion. And of course, I give it access to my CRM system called Attio, where it can see all of the contacts and companies that are in touch at Pirate Skills with me, and then Notion for the company knowledge base and, for example, customer project documentation. So it knows exactly like what I am thinking about in any given project, because I take rigorous notes, I do transcripts from meeting calls, and they are all in there. You can find a lot of inspiration for these skills on a platform called Claw Hub. Be a bit careful, as always, when you install like skills that you haven't designed yourself. Just read the warnings if it says like, hey, this is slightly suspicious, and make sure that you get skills from sources that you trust. So that is one part. This is now I set up my AI team made with tools and skills. Do you need to start with all of these? Of course not. Just start with a handful and see what it can do, and you will add more and more over time. But I wanted to share with you what my current setup is right now. Now, tools and skills empowers this AI agent not to be just like ChatGPT, but to do things in these tools that I use for my daily work the right way, thanks to skills. Now, what else do I need to do? I need to give it good memory. We have to remember that we are not teaching the AI model that we're using anything. It will forget everything if we do not remind it. This is why Claude or OpenClaw has some built-in functionalities like the soul and identity.md files, where you can essentially like form the character, tell it its role, its functionality, but also its personality. Then it has memory files based on the discussions. It has a certain system where it creates memory files, but they can get outdated pretty fast. So smarter people came along, like Shopify's Toby Lübke, who built like QMD, which is like a vector search just on markdown files. So everything up here is just markdown files. And now he built a system on top of these markdown files that makes it very easy for the AI to have faster, more intelligent recall over a longer period of time. This is how I solve the memory issue that lots of people report about OpenClaw, that it keeps on forgetting things. Absolutely not my experience. My problems that I talk about below are more about it losing connection to my tools. The third thing you want to give an AI agent, in my opinion, is some way to code for you. Of course, it's super valuable if you give it just access to Claude Code. You literally install Claude Code on their server so it can use it. You can use any coding tool that you like. And you essentially give it the power of a level 4 vibe coder. Yeah, that I described in the AI skill path article. So the ability to now set up new repos for a new project, code any product or part of a product that you want, or just do random updates on your website or fix a bug. So that is super valuable, but it can also now build the tools it's lacking. So if you remember, like I wish I would have had this function, for example, is I sync my database from one place to another. You can just have it write a little script for that. Yeah, and it codes that, and then it is now able to do this regularly. Not everything needs to be a prompt. Many things are just better done in code. It's more efficient, it is more repeatable, and the prompt can give you just more flexibility in how things are done. But for things that are done just a certain way, code is much better than prompts. So give it something that it can code with. I do this with Claude Code. Now, this is how I onboard any agent. I could later split up the agents into multiple agents with distinct roles, maybe more like a builder agent, like a CTO, CMO agent, sales agent, designer, etc. But I'm not there yet. So that is what I first wanted to get across. You need to onboard your AI teammate like anyone else and give it tools and skills and responsibilities. Now, what does it do all day for me? And what are the real use cases now that it has these capabilities? I know a lot of people are complaining that all of this OpenClaw and agent stuff is distracting you from just getting work done. But I believe it is worth investing a little bit in this infrastructure so that tomorrow it can start doing for you that you do not have to do anymore. Look at what you're already doing repeatedly and let the AI help you with that. So my setup looks like this. I have it all on Slack, and I can organize my work and my communication with ChristAIna through this Slack channel. On the left-hand side, you see a screenshot of Slack with the ChristAIna chat section, and there are 7 channels in here that I use for very distinct areas of responsibility. That does one great thing for me. It keeps the context of a conversation clean. When you create a new channel, there is like a separate session, with a separate context window that the AI model has for that topic. So let me lead you through them. My favorite one is the briefing. I'm going to show you that below. It's a morning brief at 7:30 where it shows me all of the important things I need to keep in mind for today. Then I have a channel for CRM work where it like pipes new purchases in here on new leads, and it makes sure that people who book a call are also updated in the CRM and to the right opportunity stages. And it stopped me from using my CRM, and I completely hand this over to ChristAIna because she does such a better job than me with connecting data and documenting the progress and setting up the reminder of what I need to do as a human regularly to keep my pipeline moving. Then, of course, I have my development channel if I want to build features or fix stuff on my website. Then I have a content channel for content planning and scheduling and analyzing the latest social media performance. Then I have an organization channel that is a bit more of a catch-all for everything else where I don't want to dilute the context window before that. But if I have something like a business question, a little research task, an invoice I have a question about, then I'll put it in that channel. Then I have the Talk to Me channel that is a direct line to the main session with ChristAIna with the highest access level. So if I want to change anything about how OpenClaw instance behaves, I can do this through that channel. Also create new channels on Slack. She does that for me as well. Then friendly enough invites me and Christina to it, and such things that are more like configuration stuff. And then Christina's using that for tax and accounting purposes and matching invoices to bank statements in our accounting software. And she has a test channel for that. So we do not try to force use cases. We say, like, what do we already do where ChristAIna can help? One of the things that I, as the founder, always have to have straight are my priorities for the day every morning. So I get this amazing morning brief, like I'm a gazillion dollar CEO. In the morning, I let all of this information gather by another task. And then around like 8 o'clock, I usually get this morning brief coming in. This is an anonymized version of it. I get a lot more detail, but let me show you the categories. I get the weather, then if I have any calls lined up, what events are ahead for me, then things in the pipeline, people I need to follow up on, tasks I need to do in linear, what has already been done maybe by the agent overnight, but what needs to be done next, news that is researched for me, and so on and so forth. And I have developed this, and Another beautiful thing is if I think any of those tasks can be done by the AI, I can already ask ChristAIna, hey, can you start tackling this or that, draft the email, reach out to that person, and I decide like where I want to take over as the human in the loop. So what other cases, would I recommend you do? Definitely everything that is like tool building, and software development. That is really fun because instead of just sitting in front of your machine, you can be on the go with the Slack app or WhatsApp or Telegram and ask it to do things and it will code for you. Then CRM, insane value. Like this is so much busy work, like managing a CRM that can be done for you. Getting support in the content production. Have you noticed that since January 1st, I've been publishing pretty much daily? That would have never been possible without this assistant. And I kind of went from using Claude Code as my primary assistant, which it still is like for a lot of the very hard stuff, because it's just the most flexible tool. But for everything that like needs to have like a daily or weekly repetitive thing, I do it now through ChristAIna. So we don't have to think about these agents as truly autonomous beings. At the end of the day, they are large language models running on a schedule. And the schedule makes it appear like it's proactive. But it's just as much as saying to your assistant, like every morning at 7:30, I want to get this amazing morning briefing, here are all of the details. But I let it do other things as well. Also in the morning, I let it scan all of my emails on resend to see if there are any bounces or failures or duplicate sends or things like that. It found so many mistakes I made that I could fix really quick, or that ChristAIna fixed really quick. It was embarrassing a little bit in the beginning, and now it's just maybe every other week I see, there's weirdness that I need to optimize. Then I also let it scan Vercel logs, like my workflows, my real like runtime logs from Pirate Skills. I see any errors and warnings coming in, and it will create issues in my linear project that either ChristAIna can handle or that I can handle. It's amazing. Then I make sure that my CRM and my calendar and my booking tool and my database, they're all in sync. And this is also done once a day if it's not already up to date. And you know how stale a CRM can become over time if you have worked long enough in marketing or sales. And it's hard discipline to do this. And a lot of that discipline can be offloaded to an agent these days. Now, sometimes things break. So every morning I let it do a little system health check. Are the MCP servers connected? Can you still reach this and that tool? And if it notices it's not connected anymore, it can self-heal or tell me, hey, I have a bottleneck here. Can you help me? This often results in, for example, in the morning briefing, me not getting an update on my emails if this doesn't work. Besides these scheduled so-called cron jobs, you also have with OpenClaw the heartbeat, which is one of the most interesting inventions of OpenClaw. It's something that runs on a given frequency, for example, every 2 hours, goes through a checklist and sees if everything is done for you. I observe I have a tendency to go more for cron jobs than heartbeat, but if it is a regular task that needs a lot of context, I would prefer the heartbeat. And every night, it also cleans up. It looks at the memories, the conversations, the sessions that have happened throughout the day, consolidates that, and that triggers again the QMD memory system that vectorizes these files so it's easily reachable, and long and accurate memory is a given. So remember, it's just an AI running on a schedule. Costs $12 a month to run on Hetzner, plus the AI usage. Use whichever API key you want. OpenAI is super cool with using your subscription. Anthropic, not so much, but so far I didn't have a lot of trouble. But of course, not everything is perfect. Let me tell you what breaks. What is incredibly annoying if I give it like an MCP server and I need to log in as a human, where it opens like a browser tab for me. I need to accept something, put in like a 2-factor authentication token, and then this tool has access for like 24 hours or 7 days, and after that, I need to do it again. Incredibly annoying. There are some good workarounds, but whenever I can avoid OAuth these days, I will. Then it's a very secure system that is running there that Andy has set up with this GitHub repo. It's literally like a sandbox in a sandbox that is protecting me from my own stupidity, but also from getting messed with. But this also means that there often is something like a permission missing. Like, I'm not allowed to do this in this session, on this chat in Slack. And I have to kind of often keep reminding it, hey, yes, you are allowed to do this. Or you can ask it in the gateway. It's a lot of time investment. I told you it's like 1 hour to get to install baseline, but thinking about what is this good for, making it work, getting it running, that takes a while. That is annoying. Yeah, but I believe it's worth the time investment. Not everything is perfect around here. This is still so early, and it will be handled much better. And you can already see with almost the daily releases that Anthropic comes out with Claude, it's mostly to catch up to what OpenClaw is currently already able to do. But also OpenClaw has an amazing roadmap now published for what is going to be possible, how security is going to be hardened, and how usage is going to be simplified. So that is it. One final thought that just I couldn't shake is, where does our mantra build, grow, repeat maybe already hint at a future that I didn't expect? In the beginning, I saw build, grow, repeat as this loop. You build something, you grow it, you build, you grow. But what if repeat is actually about orchestrating the build and grow layer into something more scalable? A system that builds for you and grows for you, that listens to customer feedback, builds optimizations, suggests them to you, and optimizes the product, makes it more valuable, higher retention, and on the growth side, observes your leads that are coming in, the people that trial, personally follow up with them, sees what they are doing, sees where they came from, make sure that your paid acquisition campaigns run profitably for you. This is like a teaser for me of what the future is going to look like, how solo founders and tiny crews like Pirates Guilds can really become a very, very mighty crew. Nothing is keeping us from adding more power to this system without adding more humans. That reduces our overhead a lot, forces us to do a lot more systems thinking, which is, I think, a very healthy thing to do as a business owner. And you can do this for yourself. I hope that insight and my experience is helpful. I'll keep you up to date. I absolutely intend to take the Bridesmaid and Signalog, the businesses that Christina and I have built since we have started vibe coding, into this almost zero human company direction. But we are not there yet. But when we are, we will share all of our experiences and results with you. And if you're interested in going deeper, then as always, we have a couple of events coming up. The Builder Lab and the Growth Lab are our free vibe coding and vibe marketing online event. The Builder Forge is our 6-week vibe coding training program. So if you want to speed that up and check that out, the Growth Forge is if you have a tool or you want to validate an idea with marketing, you want to learn vibe marketing, how to do that at scale. This is the next 6 weeks where we teach you how to do that as well. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you have fun with this. Keep vibing and build your own AI teammate. See you there. Bye-bye.